Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm coming to you live from the lands of the Boonwurrung, the southeast of Melbourne, on day 254 of lockdown and something like day 113 without a haircut. I'm Mark Atwell from Monash University. I'm also on the ATEM board and the TEM Conference Steering Committee, and happy to introduce our two presenters for this session today. Nicola Howard, Business Improvement Manager at Swinburne University of Technology, also known to probably ATEM members in the Bass region as the leader of our Connecting People and Events portfolio, and co-presenter John Hegarty, who is from Service Delivery at Swinburne. It's one of the centres of excellence in the Student Admin and Library Services portfolio. Just some reminders for everyone for the session. Please feel free to use the hashtag TEMConference if you're posting to social media. For any trouble with audio or video, just click on the red headset in the lobby to speak to the support team. Just remember, if you're wanting questions to be answered by the presenters, please post them in the Q&A, the live Q&A section. Feel free to use the discussion forum for chat or observations during the session, but I'll be looking for questions in the live Q&A section particularly. And any questions remaining unanswered, the speakers may actually follow that up with some written responses in the QA section later on. So without further ado, I'll pass over to Nicola and John for today's session. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. I'll start the session today doing an acknowledgement of country. We respectfully acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, who are the traditional owners of the land on which Swinburne's Australian campuses are located in Melbourne's east and outer east, and pay our respect to their elders past, present and emerging. We're honoured to recognise our connection to a Wurundjeri country, history, culture and spirituality through these locations, and strive to ensure we operate in a manner that respects and honours the elders and ancestors of these lands. We also respectfully acknowledge Swinburne's Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander staff, student, alumni, partners and visitors. And we also acknowledge and respect the traditional owners of lands across Australia, their elders, ancestors, cultures and heritage, and recognising the continuing sovereignties of all Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander nations. And I'll hand over to John.
Thanks very much, Nicola. With our presentation today, that the whole university sector was going through massive change at this time. And like many of you, we went through a massive restructure. We lost many colleagues across the university, as did many of your institutions, to voluntary redundancies. We had a big sense of loss for our people, and connections were made harder by not being able to get around to each other and have a proper farewell. And of course, there was the impact of all the corporate knowledge that was now gone. Living through a restructure, let's face it, we're all in constant organizational change, and it's never ending now. It's really become business as usual. Our service delivery team officially came together while we were working virtually during lockdown. Our team of 4 became a team of 11 from staff that were previously from a number of different business units. The section that Nicola's from, the business improvement team, who were formerly business partnerships, had previously moved to an agile way of working, adapting online tools and business rules just prior to Melbourne's lockdown number 1. Quickly, we needed to decide as a new team of many disciplines, how might we move forward together, using design thinking methodology and agile ways of working. So our question was, how do we come together as individual people and also create a team culture? How do we fit into the larger structure of our student administration and library services area? We wanted a model that could be tailored for our purpose, taking bits from design thinking, agile, project management, and Ted Lasso as inspiration. In the beginning, step 1 was to create a shared purpose statement and determine our why, how, and what. The development of our 2021 team goals and need to determine our ways of working. We set about answering just that through a number of workshops we developed and ran for ourselves using online collaboration tools. The most important outcomes from these sessions, the sense of co-ownership and inclusion in the plan, the understanding and empathy for the previously unknown, Truly, getting to see the strengths in each person or sub-team, we needed to answer how might we create better outcomes for our portfolio that align with the university's strategic vision. Understanding our why and being able to articulate it gives you an anchor. It's important on these days when you want to throw your hands up in the air with multiple days. Having a shared why helps you determine if what you're doing fits and even matters. In the hope you see what impact you are really having. Through this process, we were able to check in on our own personal why. Why are we in the role that we are? What are our drivers to be successful and ensure we have job satisfaction? Ensuring that communication and relationships with our stakeholders are enhanced for sharing a common goal. Then we came on to the how. Defining the how we work. For example, confirming the importance of data-driven decisions, having measurable outcomes, and continuing to build staff capabilities, promoting and supporting a continuous business improvement culture that is service-focused. Planning to 90 days with fortnightly sprints and having achievable tasks. Having a decision matrix to determine benefit, effort, value, and risk. Being consistent with stakeholders, business experts in communication and expectations. What we do fits into our purpose and why. The projects and business as usual activities and tasks we deliver. Usually people say, what do you do? When we should be asking is, why do you do it? The what is tools and outcomes, but if you don't know why you're doing something or where your effort fits into the larger plan or end-to-end processes, then you're at risk of being siloed, motivated, and decreasing your chances of success. With the goals, our team goals align with the larger portfolio and the university strategic plans. It's useful when triaging opportunities, scoping problems, and gathering requirements. Which one of these three goals of work fit into? Allowing that to become part of the measure of success and impact analysis. This simple question has allowed us to discuss if the project does not fit into any of these goals. Should we even be doing it in the first place? Or does it fit into another team's remit in the university where we can provide support and not lead? And now I'll just hand over to Nicola for the next section.
Thanks, John. So working in an agile way, especially while working virtually, has increased autonomy, created a transparency and an opportunity for sharing knowledge. It's allowed us, when we were briefly able to return to the office, to continue to have an inclusive environment for staff not able to attend face-to-face. We needed to develop hybrid ways of working that allowed some staff to be at home while others were in the office. And I'm sure you've all got stories of working in hybrid environments and how we might be able to do that more successfully. We are having to rethink in 2021 and plan for 2022 what is customer service delivery in a hybrid environment, and how does that match up with our current service principles that were developed pre-COVID. Having retrospectives to question ourselves and the processes, we constantly have those aha moments and learn from each other. Using focus groups, user stories, asking the right questions to ensure we've got the right problem to solve, the data to provide, the component to train, determining what process would have the most impact if automated versus listening to the loudest minority. Using design thinking processes, we can build strong relationships with end users and stakeholders so we can co-create and learn from them to ensure we problem solve before going into solution mode. you've got to have the right people at the table at the right time. So self-reflection and using prototyping, testing and ideation to get things right over time, not being scared to change things and to fail fast. If things can be done differently, then we can quickly adapt. For example, we went from having 6 stand-ups a fortnight to 4 once we'd all settled and were confident in the new ways of working. Each team member gets to be a scrum master and is responsible for leading that fortnight from the planning session to the stand-up meetings and the end of sprint retrospective. We're trying to use the agile tools that work best for us. We've co-created our own ways of working. We plot our work using 90-day quarters, using a Trello digital board, and more recently we started also looking at how we might use this tool to plan for more than 12 months in advance. And once our 2022 strategic initiatives are confirmed for our portfolio, we'll then be in a better position to plan ahead and maximise success with time management and vital information like when our business experts are in their peak periods. Some projects may run over multiple periods or are part of a much larger initiative, which we'll call epics. An epic usually has multiple projects that run over multiple periods. So the Trello boards are a good way of monitoring those and keeping them together. So breaking the projects into multiple tasks allows us to plan our fortnightly workflow. Combining your business as usual tasks, it's very easy to see at any point in the sprint what you have to do and what's in progress, or if anything's been blocked and it's outside of your control. So any ad hoc tasks or urgent tasks that come our way, they're then added to the board, and other work needs to be reprioritised using a decision matrix. This is debriefed at the end of the sprint and it's factored into planning for the next sprint. The Trello boards are a great visual tool for communicating with stakeholders, having one-on-one meetings with your manager or their manager, and at any time, if a team member's on leave or unexpectedly absent, it's an easy way for tasks to be to look at and to provide feedback to stakeholders or updates, or to take over if required. So autonomy, visibility and accountability are some of the outcomes of using this method. But you need to keep your cards updated if you are going to have some leave. So even though the majority of our contact has been virtual, a number of things allowed us to get to know each other and how we operate as a team and to keep our morale up. So team coffee catch-ups are a window into people's lives, especially during homeschooling and other challenges during lockdown. So having a Teams chat that isn't necessarily work-related allowed us another way to share a joke, a recipe, an article, or just a frustration. So you'd normally, chat about that in the office or on a walk to go and get a coffee. So I'm sure you've been too, that checking over these things daily. We wanted to get away from looking at things like COVID stats and, the 11 o'clock stand up by the Premier. So we wanted to get away from all of that bad news, and what we could do is set up a Cells virtual travel adventure activity. So we organised for staff to, on a Thursday coffee catch up, we spend in a show and tell. So where one staff member talks about a trip they've taken in the past and they share photos and memories. So we've been to Cambodia to build a house for Habitat for Humanity, a Bali trip for a large extended family that was taken over 3 locations, Bhutan through the lens of a special invited guest, not the standard travel visa experience. And last week we went to LA, to Disneyland during Halloween. So even though we're a small team made up of even smaller specialist groups, when we come together for planning or stand-ups, we're not just faces on a screen. We've dropped our walls and allowed a little bit of ourselves to shine through. And lastly, in order to be agile, you need to have empathy, not only for your stakeholders and end users, but for your team and also for yourself. And shared humour doesn't hurt either. So thank you for joining us for this discussion, and we'd love to hear any questions, and also encourage you to reach out to us and contact us during the conference and also after the conference.
What I can do as well is probably a little bit of a preview of our Trello board, if you'd be interested, because I know there's a few comments just in the discussion forum just around Trello.
Okay, great.
So what we have set up is really, and this is in our current iteration, what we are currently trying to do is then create a separate board, which is really going to be for the full year, which will allow us then to plan out our major tasks throughout the whole calendar year. And this next one is really then into a little bit more detail, where it's breaking it up our projects into that 90 days and planning in all of the activities that we would then have for those particular sprints. So at the moment we have this 2021 backlog, which will probably be moving into our year board. We have a variety of epics that any major projects or number of projects which are consumed up into a higher level project scope. We have a section where we put in our projects that are completed in the 90 days. Nothing in there at the moment as we've just kicked off a new 90 days. Promise we are delivering stuff. We've got our current 90 days where we have got our backlist of the activities and projects that we feel that we're going to deliver during this period of time. We have in here is a set of tasks or projects that are currently on hold. Really anything that was initially planned and all of a sudden somebody determines it's not a priority anymore, or we decide that actually we can't fund that anymore, tend to go in this little bucket here. One of the issues we probably had around this was a lot of team members didn't see how they could use Trello. They looked at it and they felt that Trello is a project planning tool. We don't work on projects. We do BAU tasks. These are things that we do all the time. So it was really trying to help to convert them to understand anything you do is really a task or an activity that you have to complete. If it's a BAU, it's stuff that you're doing every week or every fortnight. Those are repeat tasks that you're doing. So they're really just cards that are going in every week that you have to complete. It's activity that you're completing, and it's important for you to plan, to understand how to do your BAU tasks while still trying to manage those other activities that people come towards you with. So it helps you understand where you have capacity. And we try to use that quite a lot with the team to help them understand different ways to actually use these tools. And again, we then broke out our sprints and with the time frames for the 90 days and start mapping those activities in. One of the things that I really like now looking at this board is we're actually getting things put in quite a number of sprints ahead. Whereas previously when we started to do this activity, it was very much the day before the new sprint runs or the day of the new sprint commencing. Everybody was putting their cards in, trying to do it and trying to understand, what is this? How do I do this card again? What goes in here? Do I need to break this down? So there was a lot in that particular activity that I think our team is really coming on quite strongly with, but probably a lot of things that we want to look and kind of develop further with them around different ways to plan the task and activity sizes to really understand their cadence. What can they actually deliver within a sprint? What we then have is our sprint task management board. So that's our really active sprint board. And as you can see, Trello is wonderful, running at a wonderful speed today. So we kind of really break this up into a couple of different columns. So we've got our to-do bucket, really everything that's in the backlog for the sprint. Activity that's in progress, so what we're actively working on. Anything that's blocked during the sprints. And then any tasks that are completed. So this is always great when you get a live demo.
It's just second to you're on mute in 2021. Yeah.
But what it allows us to do is have that quick visibility around where everybody's at, what activity we're working on, and helps to give a shared connection as well for us around what everybody's working on and a better understanding for each of the team members around what the different groups do. I think for me, I was really surprised working remotely, how effective it was being remote, but still able to bring our team together, especially being such a new team. I felt actually we've had a bigger connection by having to be remote and using tools such as this that I think we probably would have had if we had just been based in the office, continuing a normal approach of everybody working in their own little buckets and areas. So based on this taking a little bit of time to load, I'll kind of really finish up, I think, here on my demo on our Trello board, if it ever manages to spin around and load up correctly. And just kind of really open it up to any questions.
Yeah, we've got a few questions coming through. Thanks, everyone. So one from Danielle, what are the feelings of your staff about wanting to stay remote or move to the hybrid model? Are they generally supportive or hesitant?
I would say they're generally supportive of moving to the hybrid model. I think the activity that we'll have is probably moving to either 2 or 3 days a week onto campus and the other days working remotely. Within our area, we're very much trying to use a shared space. Our student administration and library services area is really trying to reduce its office footprint. In an effort for the university to probably reduce some rental fees, it's trying to actually reduce the space that we're trying to use up. So what we're trying to do is, within the area that we have allocated, is work on a desk share policy where we can share the office space with another team member from another area and plan out really the days that we would normally be in the office and the days that they would be in the office and use that kind of shared equipment set up. We had a little bit of an attempt at it between lockdown, was it 3 and 4, 5 or 6, 10 or 12? One of those lockdowns.
6.8.
Yeah. So we actually got back into the office for a while and we were doing 2 days a week, which seemed to be running pretty well. We were trying to use the shared experience that Nicola was talking about earlier on of where staff on those particular days, some of them might be remote. I'm working at home, but the remaining of the staff were in the office. We would do our catch-ups in a meeting room through a Teams chat as well, where we were able to screen share using some of the systems in the office, and still actually not as effective, I think, as being remote everybody, but still being able to maintain some of that cohesiveness. I know personally, before COVID, trying to do a remote meeting and have everybody in the meeting room and a couple of people offline, it was always just a horrendous experience. Nobody could hear, you couldn't interact, and it was very much they were a forgotten person. And I think we were actually able to implement that reasonably well, doing that shared experience of on campus and at home.
Yeah, things that I've noticed too is because we do have the outer campuses of Croydon and Wantirna, and the feelings of now that expectation of they would have to drive to Auburn to come to a meeting for an hour, that's gone now. It's about, people are really thinking about how can we be more inclusive, not only for people that are at home, but for people that are actually working on campus, but at another campus. And I think we've really opened up that and being able to trial things during that period. A lot of the work that I do in business improvement is facilitating workshops. So having to learn a new skill of facilitating online and using collaboration tools like Miro and things, little post-it notes, and just keeping that interaction and not being able to read a room. You really felt that empathy of people that have worked at outer campuses for a long time, and that's how they've felt all the time. And so that's been one of my takeaways that we need to work on when we go back to the office too.
We did have some staff who very much would prefer to continue working at home, but I think they're very open to the fact of yeah, we do need to maintain that on-campus presence. We do need to have that ambience on campus, and we do need that face-to-face connection at certain points in order to help to build those relationships even further.
Definitely. We've got quite a few questions coming through about Trello. I'll try and summarise a few of them. But how much work did it take to keep the Trello cards up to date? Is it one person's responsibility to do that? Do staff find that it's an added layer of work? Was there initial resistance to it? So those sort of setup and maintenance issues.
Yeah, I think there was definitely a little bit of resistance. It wasn't very much a, no, we're not doing this. Everybody was quite open to it. We would very much discussed it around the kind of the benefits, talk to them. We ran little sessions to go through what was involved, and Nicola took a big lead on this, especially with working with the teams even individually, how to set up their cards, how to work through them. I think a lot of people initially felt it was a lot of extra effort, and Nicola, you can speak to this further. I personally feel a lot of them have come back and said that they can actually see the benefit of it, and it doesn't seem to take up as much effort as they were thinking, and helps give them an understanding of the work and steps that they actually do and have to put in place to actually achieve the work that they deliver.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things like having a checklist within your project or your task card, and at the end having the due date and being able to tick that box, it turns green, and in the next stand-up being able to say, yep, please move that one into completed, and then, you know, there's a bit of a yay by everyone. So I think, you know, back in the old days when we used to have to go over to IT and they'd have their version of a Trello board up on an actual wall and moving index cards from one place to another using blue tack. It's that same feeling of that combined effort by a team, and each person is responsible for their own cards, and so they're only as good as what the effort you put into them. But that initial feeling of duplication of work is gone. That we don't make a list in Excel. No one makes a handwritten to-do list anymore, where there was a little bit of parallel of that at the beginning, and then this became a way of working, I think. And that's when we knew we were successful.
Yeah, it's just getting a different mindset for the team is really...
And impact on enthusiasm and engagement of the team through that. Have you seen a noticeable impact from Trello?
I think personally I've seen the team seem to be engaged in a lot more. Just the fact of being able to move cards, seeing what people achieve, and probably as well for other staff members, just being able to see what the rest of the team or that group and area do. And the fact of being so encouraging when staff are actually completing things. But one of the other activities that I think has been really beneficial is when you'll have them talk about the activity that they are working on, and people saying, oh, I don't have time to do that or get to that. And somebody put, do you need a hand? I can help with that. I can help you out there. What else? What have you got that I can help with? So there's been a lot where that piece where people are putting their hand up and helping with it as well. But also being able to use the cards for, like we had a staff member leave. We were doing a piece where we had to split the work and separate it into a number of different team members. And being able to use Trello for that and actually assign it to particular staff members, it was a lot clearer on who was working on which activity, on which day, and who was expected to provide it. So it worked really well in that method as well.
Great, thank you. There's a couple more questions about Trello, but I think we might take those offline, given that we've got less than a minute of the session to go, and the presenters will have a look at those questions and get back to people. So we might wrap it up there. Thanks everyone for attending. Please, I'd love to say a round of applause for Nicola and John, but virtual applause. And you can return to the event program now to join the next session. And please remember to complete the survey on exiting this session. But thanks again, Nicola and John, for a great engaging session today.
Thanks for chairing.
Look forward to seeing you soon, face to face. All right.
Thank you.
Cheers.